Our next guests have been fighting for the American dream all their lives. Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Muser, along with National Taxpayers Union EVP Brandon Arnold. Good to see you both, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Congressman, you know, there's one line that sticks out about this transition period in President Biden's op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. He says, during this transition, growth will look different. Well, it's not growth if you're not growing, right? How does that look any different?
Yeah. There's no pro-growth plan anywhere near what the upside down economic policy of what the Biden administration is spewing. There's not much of a profile in real economics, nor is there any profile in courage with all this finger pointing and blaming. Look, I mean, they came in from day one. The gasoline prices, oil, natural gas is what's led primarily to this inflation. I just got back from Europe. I mean, they're dealing with that as well, yet their economies are actually growing. And the whole world is looking for American leadership. And boy, this administration's not providing it. You know, overspending. You know, his plan is to continue spending, raise taxes, and open up the oil reserves. I mean, it's just Band-Aid applications rather than any short-term or long-term policy.
Well, they're not even Band-Aids. They're not working. It's having the opposite effect. The gas prices continue to go up, even as they sell off more of our reserves that, by the way, are supposed to stay within our borders. They're for emergencies at home, not to be sold overseas to China, of all places. Brandon, there's an old saying, if you're coasting, you're going downhill. And Americans don't want to be going downhill. I mean, and we are barely coasting. We actually were going in a negative direction in the first quarter. We may be in one now, which would officially be a recession.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And what's happening, you know, the lower income Americans, middle class Americans have been getting clobbered by inflation for a while. They're the ones that feel it the hardest. They feel it the worst. But it's even seeping into the upper middle class now. There's reports that people making $250,000 a year, increasingly dipping into savings, living paycheck to paycheck. Inflation is hitting everybody. It's hitting people of all income stripes. And instead of getting any real solutions out of this administration, I think you pegged it perfectly. The Wall Street Journal op-ed is all about blaming others, whether it's Putin, whether it's the junior senator from Florida. He's blaming Rick Scott for some of these economic problems instead of actually taking ownership. Even his Treasury Secretary is saying she missed the mark when it came to inflation, but we're seeing no such humility from this president.
Well, he's blaming others and assuming that Americans are idiots. I mean, to suggest that negative growth is a different look of growth is just absurd. It reminds me of when they were trying to convince us that barbecues cost less, despite the fact that we saw inflation making them cost more. Congressman, also on gas specifically and oil production in the United States, we're going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia to get them to produce more. Meanwhile, they say they're not discouraging producers here from producing more. But you look at what's happening with the Dakotas, where you have the Bakken shale, and used to be, we were getting 45 million barrels in October 2019. Now we're getting about 27% less than that in oil production. You have a lot of shale oil in Pennsylvania. Is the same thing happening there?
Yeah, we certainly do. I mean, this is a profile again in Jimmy Carter on steroids. It's the highest level of inflation in 40 years and the worst president in 45 years. Yeah, the Biden administration decided to send a mission group to Venezuela to see what they could do there. Now they're going to go out to the Middle East and to Saudi Arabia and to OPEC. And meanwhile, we've got the second largest reserve of natural gas in the world here in Pennsylvania. They have been on the assault on domestic energy, David, through the regulations, through canceling of the Keystone Pipeline, and primarily to the warnings to investment banks to disclose their climate risks in their investments. I mean, this is an administration. If there's one thing that Joe Biden's lived up to, was his campaign promise was to kill domestic fossil fuels, and he's doing one hell of a good job doing it. And then they speak fondly of the idea of gasoline prices being high, and somehow that's going to create more green energy. I mean, it's really upside down.
Well, and Brandon, the congressman is on the committee for small business. Small businesses are hurt particularly hard by the overregulation of this administration. You have so many new regulations coming in. Not only did they reverse the deregulation of the Trump years, but they've added on to that far more regulations than existed before Trump was president during the Obama years. So, I mean, the fact is that big businesses can sometimes eat those costs, not always, but small businesses can't. They can't afford fancy lawyers and accountants to help them out with these regulations.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They've been, excuse me, they've been clobbered by inflation. They've been clobbered by additional regulatory burdens. And right now, you go on summer vacation now. We're in that season. You go to the beach and ice cream stores can't stay open. The place selling flip-flops and pool floaties can't stay open. Why? Because we've had such lousy policies that have increased inflation, that have increased the cost of doing business. Labor costs are through the roof if you can even find people to staff these seasonal stores. So it's really starting to crunch these small businesses and really hurt the people that want to do business with them, the consumers that want to go out there and support their local small businesses. Can't when these stores are closed.
Yeah. Congressman, it seems to me, final question to you, that this administration is looking towards is kind of a quasi-socialist European model. At least some of the Europeans, by the way, have gotten rid of that model because it didn't work over there either. But that's what they appear to be trying to transition this economy over to. It's more than just gas and oil and green energy. It's the entire economy that they're trying to put on this quasi-socialist European model. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's very odd how they have absolutely no respect for the private sector. They have no understanding of what small business is going through. Biden says, and too many Democrats in the House agree with him, let's increase spending and raise taxes. Somehow that's going to lower inflation and the deficit. It's just a misunderstanding of the fundamentals, but it's also a socialist go woke and go broke attitude.
And it's also not what Americans voted for when he claimed to be going towards the middle. I mean, that's clearly not when 79% of the people think we're going in the wrong direction. Dan Muser, Brandon Arnold, good to see you both. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Well, adding to inflation even more, the Biden administration just erased